Good morning and welcome to Sunday service. For those who might not know us, my name is Bharati, this is Lorna, and it is our joy to be here with you today. So, it's always interesting for me if I'm doing the Sunday service talk to just see what the topic is going to be. So I read this one, just the topic, and said, oh, deeds versus intentions. I can relate to this. I was thinking from the opposite point of view. We're thinking good intentions, you know, do they ever become fulfilled in the world of deeds? And so I thought, well, okay, I'm set. And then, of course, I read it and went, okay. Now, I love the way that Swami Kriyananda, who wrote the Rays of the One Light, sets up the titles for things as though there were a dichotomy, deeds versus intentions, and then goes on in the text to show you that there's very little difference really. It's a matter of degree only. It's the same thing like matter is the deed and energy is the intention. The intention crystallizes into form on earth and is the deed. So I was thinking then about matter and energy, and recalling my childhood. I was in school in the 50s and the 60s, and at that time, it was very clear that matter was one thing, energy was another. And I had a special interest in energy because my dad was a substation operator for Bonneville Power, so I knew that energy was electricity. And you could clearly see electricity, matter, everything that was real in the world, you know, these obviously were not the same. They had some connection in your television maybe, or your iron. It's back in the days when we had to iron our clothes. But that's just how it was. And yet I was thinking, well, not thinking back to then, but looking historically, Einstein came up with this little formula, E equals mc squared, back in 1905. And so in the 50s and 60s, it had been around for a while and still was not common thought form. People didn't really understand what that meant. Well, now we're farther into Dwapara Yuga, this age of energy, and you hear that word bandied about all the time. You look in any magazine, and it's just common for people to think, oh, what's the energy behind what's going on? You know, how is this working? And you see the word energy everywhere, and people understand, generally speaking, that it's part of the continuum, that matter is crystallized energy, that you see the continuum more and more now. It doesn't seem like two separate things. And it's interesting to me that obviously back 2,000 years ago, much farther back than 1905, that's exactly what Jesus was talking about. You know, if you're holding this energy, it's just as potent as doing the deed. So in a way they were saying in the reading, you know, this is as bad as this. And if you look at it in another way slightly, it's like, well, this is as good as this as well. Your intentions, even though they might not yet have come to fruition as deeds, are intentions to become better people, to become more compassionate, more kind, to become more godlike. Even though that hasn't yet come to fruition as deeds, perhaps, or perhaps for many of you it has in a lot of ways, still that continuum is there. Sometimes I think about, you know, making progress or not making progress or whatever, and I remember, and I can't even remember who said it, of course, but sometimes, you know, it's really enough that even if you're moving backward, you're facing the right direction. So that's where our other topic of this week comes in, of patience. So patience, I thought, well, I'll look up on the online dictionary and just see what it has to say about it. And they had several definitions, and many of the first ones were about patiently enduring, which was in our early chant. And then I thought, okay, well, what's endurance then? Because we think of it in terms of suffering or difficulty or whatever, and what it really comes from the word duration, which means lasting a long time. And patience has some of that same element to it. It's like hanging in there even though you don't want to, you wish something else were going on. And so it was really about the willingness, the ability to put aside restlessness or annoyance with delay. And I thought, oh man, that is so right on for most of us in so many circumstances. We want what we want when we want it. And we become frustrated and restless or whatever when it doesn't happen in that way. There was a man who was grocery shopping, and in his cart was a young child screaming, obviously way overtired, probably hungry. They're going down the aisles, and this man is saying, just relax, Thomas. It'll be okay, Thomas. It'll be over soon, Thomas. And a woman finally came up and she said, you know, I am just astonished and delighted seeing your patience with little Thomas. And he said, what? No, I'm Thomas. And that just brought to my mind that sort of, a bit of what helps us become more patient is our own self-talk. And he was saying to himself, you know, you can handle this. He's probably breathing, which is always a good thing to do. I was reading a book recently, which I found very helpful. It came up into my life in several ways, as things often do. You know, you've never heard the term, and then suddenly it's in your face all the time. And it's called Self-Compassion by a woman named Kristen Neff. And one of the things she was saying in there is that how necessary it is for us to have self-compassion, but part of what we do, you know, our self-talk is often not kindly. And she said, not only wouldn't you talk to your best friend that way, you wouldn't even talk to somebody that you didn't like very much that way, but to yourself. We constantly, you know, are abusing ourselves and putting ourselves down, totally lacking patience. In one of the books that Jyotish Novak wrote, he and his wife Devi are the spiritual directors of Ananda Worldwide. He was saying that patience is the antidote to anger. And I really thought about that because, you know, I wouldn't think of them as opposites. And yet, when you think about it, you know, where does anger arise? From thwarted desire, basically. So we want something when we want it, and we don't get it, and we become angry. And so cultivating patience is a wonderful way to overcome that sense of anger with life. I think often of the meditation practice of Hong Sa. If you don't know it, it's very simple. It's not easy, on the other hand, but it is simple, and it's simply following your breath with the mental mantra of Hong and Sa. So all you're doing is just watching your breath, mentally saying Hong and Sa as you breathe, not controlling your breath in any way. And, you know, that's it. So what, of course, happens to some people much more than others is your mind becomes involved. And instead of just watching your breath, you suddenly are realizing, oh, I need to do this later today, or oops, I forgot to do that. Where's my list? So you're starting to put it on your mental list, and then, you know, you're carried away with something. And then, if you're like me, what you do is you compound that by then starting to mentally abuse yourself for the fact that you've gone off, that your mind is not just in Hong Sa, that you're up again for the 40 bazillionth time. And really, all you need to do when you notice that you've gone to Gaga land somewhere is just come back. Just come back. And I think Hong Sa is just a metaphor for how we're meant to live life. You know, we're in our spine, we're centered, we're patient, we're loving, we're clear-minded, and then whoosh, we're off somewhere else. And all we need to do really is just come back to center. That's where we can function the best, and that's where we want to live our lives. So it's just a matter of, she says, just a matter of doing that. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can improve our patience. And I always like to think of Helen Gorman, who's our kindergarten teacher at the school, who was telling me one time she'd really been praying to have more patience with the students. And as we all do, what she wanted was the, magic wand approach where suddenly God goes, bing, now you're patient. And she was saying, no, what she got instead was many, many opportunities to practice patience. And it's easy to see sometimes how you could look at a word like patience and think of it as a very passive thing. You know, we're waiting, whether we're waiting for God to come or we're waiting for, our ship to come in or whatever we're waiting for, that we just wait. And watching Helen has been a real eye-opener in that way. Yes, with the students, she's so patient with them. That doesn't mean, of course, that she lets them just run around and do whatever they want. Her patience is in constantly, over and over again, helping them to know what to do, what to do, what to do. And without getting all bent out of shape and angry about it, it's just how they are. They're 5 years old. What are you going to do? But many people would get all bent out of shape and angry. But practicing, practicing, and practicing. One of the things that the reading said that would help us with patience is to tune in to the longer rhythms of life. And in a minute, I'm going to read you a little selection from Whispers from Eternity, which is about tuning in. And the example he's using is like a radio, tuning in on a radio. Now, many of you are probably too young to remember these, but when I was a child, we had one of those huge cabinet radios, and it had knobs on it, and that's how you actually turned the knob to tune into the station you wanted. Again, that was a miracle because, only matter existed, but somehow radio waves were real too and brought you things, exciting things from the outside. So looking to the longer rhythms of life and just accepting, again, no easy thing, that things will come in their own time. It doesn't mean, however, of course, that we passively wait. If we're saying, Divine Mother, I want you, I want you, I want you, we're like the naughty baby who's pulling at her robe, whining and crying, and she has to pay attention to us. We're her children. She loves us. If, however, we don't put our energy out in that way, if we don't pray, we don't meditate, we don't make any attempt to actually gain her attention, and instead we go, okay, I put my sign up on my door, Divine Mother, come on in, and then I kick back in my recliner and, play a few hands of solitaire. I don't think that's going to do it. So what will be helpful? And I think two things that I just wanted to share that I thought of that can help us, besides all the techniques that we already know, and one is just to look to see where we can see Divine Mother's presence in our lives. And as you do that more and more, you see more and more clearly. everywhere you look, there will be examples. The other thing is we can, even if we're not yet totally perfected, we can still be secret agents for Divine Mother. And we can look for situations in which someone else is needing a boost in some way. We can pray for them. We can do something for them on the physical plane that they're needing. Offer them a smile, offer them whatever it is that might be helpful to them in extending their patience as they wait for Divine Mother's coming more in their lives. And I'm going to end just with that reading that I mentioned. You know, if you look in this book, you see I've got these things everywhere, and I've got them colored ones. I love when I'm preparing for service, I just end up reading the entire book over again, because every one of these is just so amazing and wonderful. So I really highly recommend, if you don't have a copy, get one. I will broadcast my voice with the chorus of thy songs. With the soft finger touches of my soul intuition, I tuned the radio of my inner perception. At first, I caught only the sounds of nearby experience. Then came a symphony of inner harmony, followed by sweet strains from my heart's orchestra of finer feelings. And then came the swelling chorus of my age-long cravings for thee. All these I caught on the radio of my soul as I kept tuning my perception, waiting to catch the whispers of thy voice. O guardian angel of all souls, with infinite patience I went on tuning my radio. At last, when I was almost prepared to give up further trying, thy song burst upon my heart. Oh, let me broadcast through my every word now the chorus of thy songs. We'll have a moment of silence.
Keep calling him, keep calling him, keep calling him. Whether he replies or not, keep calling him. In the temple of unceasing prayer, believe that he's approaching there, and call to him, keep calling him. Thou dost know I am praying, Lord, you know I love no other. I'll speak not nor ask when to calling in. Even when there's no reply, never let your longing die, and call to Him, keep calling Him. Remain persistent, undepressed, through dark and seeming silence. If in the midst of life, disease, and death,